Hello, welcome to Global Mission of Peace's Mystic View. And I am Radagast, and I am joined by Shelley. Hello, Shelley.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
And the topic for today is the Mandela effect. An opportunity. So this kind of got precipitated somewhat because Shelley and I were on the Kev Baker show last week. And which I hope if you watch Mr. View, you might have seen that. But he brought up a topic that had not caught my eye, and it's being called the Mandela effect. And then shortly after, he mentions that I see it everywhere. I see it on forums. I see YouTubes about it. So I realized, a meme is forming. And generally when memes form, especially these days, and especially ones that can create some dust with their perception, I always suspect it could be a psyop or a psychological operation, for those of you who don't know what psyop is. And it would be by the normal critters and mischief makers that think that we're useless eaters and will use every opportunity they can to demonstrate that we are, we're just a bunch of Looney Tunes with crazy ideas. And so the insertion of something like the Mandela effect, Mandela effect, because mandala is a artwork, a transportive artwork. That the insertion of this, into our community is a good way to see how people run with it. Kind of like the flat Earth concept. And again, I'm not going to go weigh in either way, because as I've said, I think in future, past mystic views, there's the Mandela effect. I can't tell my past from my future. And that as far as I'm concerned, as long as I can travel from point A to point B and love my friends and my family, I can do that on a round or flat Earth. So to me, that's, it's only when people get kind of, I can't be your friend if you think the Earth is round or flat. That's when things get stupid, actually. I won't say silly. That's pretty stupid. Anyway, so with the Mandela effect, apparently what is happening is that things that people recall quite succinctly in their memory, when they're kind of turning to public records, all of a sudden, reality is not as they remember it. So, Shelley, do you ever, before I kind of, we're going to obviously take this deeper, but since I kind of weighed in, why don't you weigh in?
Well, what we could do is provide some examples, because before it was referred to as the Mandela effect, it was also referred to as the Bernstein Bear effect. And the reason for that was people had accepted a specific spelling of the Bernstein Bears, and then now with this new reality after the fact, now the Bernstein Bears is spelled completely different. So I have many examples in my own life. And I've seen examples in both time and space where this applies. So I think this is absolutely fascinating to bring a discussion about.
Well, yeah, I think it used to be Berenstein, and then it turned into Berenstain.
And here's the thing, it doesn't even sit right in my gut to hear the new wording. And also same with Looney Tunes. It used to be Looney Tunes, T-O-O-N. Okay, and now they change it. But anyway, it's beyond the movies. However, because as a strong collective, we watch the same movies, so we can comment on it and have a validation that, oh no, I actually heard it the other way as well. So the validation seems to be an important aspect of where we go with this.
Well, the other, apparently, where it's percolating up a bit are people remembering Bible verses. Now, for me, this isn't quite to me, it doesn't really necessarily fall into the Mandela effect, because we know that those books get edited, updated, whatever you want to call it. So apparently, the two examples I saw was the one where I don't even remember it from exactly what phrase it is, but supposedly it was like, if a calamity is coming, or there, you know, a prophecy, there is a calamity coming, and on that day, you know, leave all your goods behind and flee to the hills. If you're in your fields, leave everything and flee to the fields. So, and the word that everybody remembers, it was goods. Well, apparently now in the King James Version, it says stuff. Leave your stuff behind. And, you know, stuff as a formal piece of English is a verb, to stuff. Stuff as belongings or things that you own is slang. So using slang in the Bible is goofy, or maybe it's supposed to be hip. But it's, to me, that's not a Mandela effect that we're, I mean, because that's editing. Same thing with Berenstain, Looney Tunes, I mean, like, something is up, somebody's doing something, but I don't consider that to be quite as much of the real Mandela effect that I have experienced multiple times, and I know you have. Now, of course, as mystics, we're kind of used to this. Things have been doing this for at least since the 2000s, and after 2012, you know, December 21st, when supposedly people thought we would ascend, but there was a major shift in energy, subtle energy, but a major shift. I have noticed these kinds of time anomalies are more pronounced, but for me, they have been just a part of greater perception. Both you and I know that there are different past timelines, there are different future timelines, and then there's kind of like the aggregate, the one that has the majority, and that kind of becomes the dominant timeline. So,
well, that would actually give them good reason to want to modulate our timeline, because as we know, the spoken word abracadabra is a frequency. It has an impact on what we experience as reality. If it was possible to modulate what we think of, for example, the Buchig or the Buseji Mountains, all that was discovered there with regard to the actual technology to accomplish what we're talking about here, the Mandela effect. That technology is actually there and has been, well, we could say played with, at least, between the Romanian and the American government, if not others. But it's the technology that perhaps people should benefit to know that this is actually, in reality, something that's been influencing our planet. It's not just CERN, it's not just HARP. There's actually technologies far beyond that. Mm-hmm. That actually makes this less mysterious. It takes kind of the mystique out of it. The question might remain, why? That might be a good place to go. With regard to the Bible, we know that that's a pretty useful indicator that there's been a lot of editing. And why would they want to edit our history? I mean, that takes us down a pretty clear path as well once you start answering some of those questions.
We did a show about it.
We did.
Whether history is contrived or not. But again, that was done through actual physical editing. Mm-hmm. Just playing tricks with printing and media, mm-hmm. where the real quote unquote timeline or Mandela effect is where reality, as we perceive it, not as we read it in media, is showing, let's call it a certain playfulness. Mm-hmm. I was going to say slippery, but I like the word playful better.
Okay, so was it playful when our the tuning globally was changed to 440? I mean, I I think it's so much more beautiful to listen to it when the A is tuned to 432. It's inspirational and opening. So we'll go with playful, but
Yeah,
I'm not
okay.
really appreciating the
Well,
game much.
your point is well made. That was very slippery. Actually, slippery the way things that are slimy are slippery.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was a slime. But okay, so the other verse I just want to bring up just to kind of finish was the one about I guess a point about Jesus saying that you don't put new wine into old wineskins.
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently in a new King James, the newer King James ones, they don't use wineskins; they use bottles. So it's almost like maybe in these editings they're trying to bring it up to date because they know what Common Core is turning out in the way of people who are educated. So maybe they're just trying to adjust the Bible so that even people who have a modern education can interpret it. So they're making stuff instead of goods, bottles instead of wine skins, because people don't drink wine out of wine skins anymore, at least in the countries that have Common Core, they don't.
Right.
And so
what did that term actually mean anyways? These were not literal expressions. These were analogies so that they could be interpreted by any people at any time. They didn't have to understand the language of the time. So by changing it to bottle, I think now, they've completely taken it out of context.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole take it at face value has an awful lot of holes in it, and I'm not talking WHO, Ellie. I'm talking the leak type.
Well, I mean, the analogy is really bottles don't work with the analogy because bottles are not affected by old or new wine. Wherever you pour in them, fine. But when you were actually using skins, if you put new wine into an old thing, it would cause it to burst. There'd be a chemical reaction. So you would actually end up losing your wine and your wineskin. So, I mean, it's really silly to use bottles because the analogy, I mean, anybody who knew anything about this would understand the whole thing about almost like our bodies being the equivalent of the wineskins. And that, and this new spirit we're bringing in, I mean, the analogy to me I don't know if, for me, it doesn't work with bottles. Maybe other people do understand it. But what I want to do is kind of like, we usually do the good news at the end, but I don't have any specific good news. Maybe you do, but I'm trying to take this Mandela effect and make it good news because one of the posts I read in one of the forums that were discussing the Mandela effect was a woman saying that her teenage daughter had come home and said that they're discussing the Mandela effect at school. This, to me, is major. This is good news because they're not discussing chemtrails in school. They're not discussing different story. I mean, they might discuss 9/11 in school, but it would be the official story. I mean, they're not discussing it. They're they're delivering it. So to me, that one of the things that might be considered in the conspiracy theory stuff is actually being discussed by teenage kids in school. And to me, that's good news.
That's very good news.
Because it really opens people up to asking, what's up? What's up with this? And then it allows certain people whom I mean, some people might go, oh, I don't know. But there are some of us who actually go, hey, well, I have an answer. Whether it's the answer is another story. Okay, please ignore my phone ringing in the background. It's nice music, though. I could dance.
This is nice.
Yeah, it is. It's especially since a lot of times the phone wakes me up. It's like, oh, let me samba over to my phone. All right. That's the silly news. Okay. So to me, this allows us for people going, what's up? To say, well, this is the true nature of reality, and time is starting to reveal itself. What do you think about that as an explanation?
That's very good because another way to describe it is, well, if we just keep giving them enough rope, they will hang themselves. Essentially, they're revealing themselves and they're getting caught all over the place. And because we're no longer affected by fear as we once were, they really don't have too much left to work with.
Mm.
So yay them for, it's like the Wendigo thing, you know, it's got the remedy contained within it. So hallelujah, brothers, keep on keeping on.
Yeah, yes, I mean, we've definitely been one of the topics of conversation in the alternative community for a while has been the concept of timelines. People like Simon Parks. If you follow Simon Parks and his talks, he discusses timelines quite a bit and different trajectories. And when you understand reality, how it kind of gets formed, you understand that it's almost like trajectories. It's almost like when you, like hitting a golf ball, depending on how it gets hit. I mean, it's going to go somewhere away from where your club hit it, but it could take different trajectories depending on in the now how it gets hit. And timelines are kind of similar. It's kind of like the energy that comes into the now goes forward, and I believe it actually kind of sprays out with possible realities that come into probable realities, and then we kind of have one that is a main reality. But even if we look at 9/11 as an example, you have one group of people who accept the official story, and then you have another group of people that have alternative stories. And even so, probably the group with the most solidarity in having one timeline are the ones who believe the official story. Once you step out and then you can use some supposition into what might have happened, you do have different lines of thought that will, again, so I'm just trying to use a little example for certain people, like, I don't get what you're talking about with different timelines and trajectories, but it's, it takes a little subtlety. It's something you're going to need your right brain to join your left brain in. This isn't, and in my earlier videos, I would talk a lot that the concept of left or right brain is a polarity form of thinking. And that really what you need your right brain to connect dots. I mean, to kind of follow patterns and dots. You need your left brain to kind of fill in the details. So it's kind of almost like when we were kids, they were just those numbered dots. What was it? And then you kind of connected them and this picture emerged. So that would be like one form. And then you could take the color in, and if you want to color in and bring even more form. It looks like you have something to say.
Okay, but what's really important here is for us to maintain our coherence, or actually move into greater coherence. So we have what we know we got in our back pocket is phase conjugation. We can come back to that later, but we could discuss really the essential element here is coherence. The alignment of these timelines, it's like they need to line up like a locking system. The tumblers all have to come into alignment so that there's that open channel that it fluidly passes through. That's creating a coherence. And as soon as we have any of these modulations happening, whether it's technological or by some natural means, which maybe we're popping in and out of phase and we can land on a different timeline, whatever. There's so many possibilities here. But what we really need as a collective oneness is to become coherent. And anything that's taking us away from that is harmful for us individually and collectively and the planet.
Okay, so I want to translate what you said a little bit. Because some people might not quite understand what you mean by the tumblers and a lock. Anybody who ever had a combination lock knows you usually kind of have to spin it just to kind of get it into neutral, and then you do winds and you kind of go to one thing, and especially in the bigger like safes, you'll actually hear something drop, and then you go in the other direction, and as you dial it in, you'll hear a drop. and then you go another, and you get the final drop, and then you can open the safe. Now, Stargates, if you ever saw that Stargate movie or watched the series, Stargates, depending on where you wanted to go, were basically you had this thing that spun, and you had markers, and you would kind of dial it in to access a certain quadrant of the galaxy or greater universe. And so that's what Shelley was meaning for those who didn't quite get the tumbler, because not all of us have operator combination locks, or even if we have, we might not be, we might just think, oh, you got to do these 3 numbers, and it's almost like digital, because a digital one in a way would work like that. But in the old analog, you would turn it, it would drop. Something would actually drop into place, and that had to be in place for the next one to drop into place, for the third one to drop into place, for it to open. So it was a sequential dropping into place. Okay. So now memory is really interesting, because we all kind of have our memories of what we've experienced, and we'll keep it more about the public or social memory as opposed to private memory. But even our social memory is a private memory of bigger events. And in many ways, memory is mythic or mythos. And as if you've ever listened to anybody speak on mythology, they usually will make some effort to draw the distinction that mythology is not something that's made up. Mythology is a way of remembering. Mythology is basically a narrative that allows certain events to be placed in a timeline narrative so they can be recalled. And some continuity, because it is this process of things that happen that create a result at some point. So the narrative kind of follows a timeline, but sometimes a timeline is less important, and that's where myth doesn't always follow a linear timeline. And so memory does not follow a linear timeline, but we kind of psychologically force it into a linear timeline. And I think part of this Mandela effect might be the universe conspiring to wake us up by saying, like, no matter how hard you now try to put this all in neat little straight lines, go ahead, go into your memory, and then try and draw a line from what you remember to here and see how well you do with that.
I like that analogy because, as you know, I'm quite appreciative of everything that goes on in the heavens as far as being a guide to what's happening down here on Earth. And so exactly that, we had 1987A, we had all of that experience, which ultimately landed in the hippocampus, which is the organ for memory. So exactly what you're saying here is what we've seen in the heavens as well.
Pegasus is on the move.
Pegasus, yeah.
Okay, that was kind of like an inside comment, which we probably should expand upon.
Yeah.
Shelley has done some extensive work. How about like thesis, and which is rather extensive. Hello, Dr. Shelley. And part of what why don't you explain it, Shelley?
Well, it's a very long story, and it'll take us away from the Mandela effect. However, if we were to follow the sequence of events documented by the people we trust, NASA and other scientists, okay, a little sarcasm, but nonetheless, it's accepted science that has been measured. So what that refers to is that light has traveled from a specific point and has landed at a destination. Now, the destination is relevant to our pineal gland, and it is processed through the hippocampus. Now, the hippocampus has a very strong nature for being, the plasticity means that it can be altered and changed very easily. But what we're doing is a recall and opening. When I say recall, I say like remember who you really are. It's an opening, really, to remember the God, let's not call it God, the cosmic consciousness or the Christ consciousness. It's all around us. And so this lends itself to the natural elements that this Mandela effect might be prompting, in that through nature we are awakening to our memory of being one, of that collective expanded Christ consciousness. We can use Christ interchangeably with love consciousness.
Yes.
Or cosmic consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the natural expression that our stars and the lights that were given to us according to the Bible to be as signs, that's what it's telling us.
Mm.
That's the signs. And then we find it within our own physical being.
Okay. Thank you. And to get back to I'll take it back to the Mandela effect,
Yeah,
since I took
Mandela effect.
Since I took you off of it. I really think what's important with this Mandela effect is, and why I think it could be a bit of a, a cosmic conspiracy, is that it's trying to pull us out of our obsession with the past and into the now, and into our future. Now, I did have a line of thought there that has been Mandela'd away, and I hope to pick up on this in a moment.
It feels like we've been shifted 90 degrees.
Okay, I'm going to write this down so I don't forget it.
Okay. Oh, well, if you were remembering, please go ahead.
Okay.
Please.
The past, in many ways, like our brother Sanjay had mentioned one time, when you're driving, basically your main focus is forward, and you have a big windshield to go forward in. Now, there is some reference to what's behind you, but what are we using? It's a little mirror. And the reason it's little is because what's behind you is not as important as what's in front of you. And so I would like to think that if Source is trying to give us a nudge here, the message of that nudge is what is behind you. First of all, if there's no danger there, and it's kind of hard for, in most cases, your past there's no dangers lurking there. So please don't worry about it. It's almost like there should be a little thing, things appear smaller than they really are. Or things might look different in the now than they do in the mirror. And it's kind of, there's like that. And so because we have a new reality, a new paradigm to create. And so that paradigm for now is going to be about looking into the future for now, so that when we arrive in the future, our now has built towards it. And what happened in the past isn't that important. The important things are what we did wrong in the past, and we don't need fine details. All we need is general, like that idea stunk. That was a wrong way to do it. We don't need details. We don't need to know that it happened on November 27th, 1973 at 2:17 p.m. That is not crucial to knowing that on that very specific date, something went bad and you remember that it didn't work. The date and time and month do not matter to the information you need. So the Mandela effect isn't real. I mean, people say, oh, we thought Mandela died this, but he died there. If he's now officially dead, when he died isn't really so important. I guess maybe if you're writing a Wikipedia article and you want to have your facts straight, well, then it might matter. But even then, I mean, what does so much of this data, how does it serve us in our present and our future formation?
I understand what you're saying, and I think that the story around these things isn't so important. However, we have seen how numerology, how numbers and so on actually have a frequency or a vibration that can be used for or against us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that could well be part of the how of the technology, if we want to look at it as a technological experience or result. And then if we're going to look at it as a natural result, you know, those things all still apply. But regardless, it's the agreement that we have as a collective one because of the entanglement principles. And I don't know if you feel like we need to explain that a little further, but...
Well, yeah, yes, because I think that one of my biggest issues with New Age and its memes is it's been diluted and turned into the Reader's Digest version of the perennial wisdoms, ancient knowledge, that it loses what import that it might provide us. I keep on having my own, like, I guess we'll call it memory Mandela effect. I mean, I'm moving forward and I have this thing clear in sight, and as I get the words out to get to where I'm going, it's like, where'd it go?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a little interception with frequencies there. Well, you know, if we bring it back to coherence, so if we look at a laser beam as opposed to just, you know, a light, the photons of a laser beam overlap their boundaries, and then they behave as one. So they're coherent. They can operate together, and it has nothing to do with people losing their individuality. It simply means that we are greater organized.
Okay, entanglement.
Yeah, entanglement.
Okay, well, basically, from the entanglement concept comes out of quantum physics, and it's really known as quantum entanglement. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, and what that kind of implies is that anything in the universe that has reacted with something will stay kind of connected. And that's kind of a point I made in some of my earlier videos before Mystic View about the genetic manipulation. You know, like, okay, we have reptilian blood possibly in our genetics, and mantid, and maybe some other things. And for those of us who are willing to play with this idea, we all know that the reptilians are kind of, well, first of all, they're not very emotional, and they're kind of cold and lizard-like. Go figure. Mm-hmm. And but because their genetics are mixed in with us, we're entangled with them. Now they're kind of going nowhere, but humanity has a very promising future if it pulls its head out of the sand. Very promising. I mean, like galactic stars. And if we go to the level of consciousness that is possible and capable and actually intended for us, we are vehicles for a cosmic consciousness in biology. So if we manage to do the pop, as I call it, which is another word for almost like, you know, an ascension type of ascension of perception, we will then affect the reptiles. And I do mean sentient reptiles, not the garden variety. Mm-hmm. And so what we would actually upgrade them, those who could make the shift, and those who for certain it might shatter them. But if we go where we're going, we change them, we change mandates and any other genetics are in us, because we're entangled at the quantum level.
Yeah, and that's true. So that kind of flies in the face that they would want to do something against us. Now, they being the higher ups. However, the they that we are referring to are the ones who are just like kind of spoiled children that want to hang on to their allowance and don't want to give up their power. You know, it's not really the higher level that once was associated with them.
Well, there's a certain kind of arrogance from, you know, the elite types, and also the reptilians are highly arrogant. And they probably figured, oh yeah, that's a chance, but we're talking about humans. They're losers, complete losers. They've been given the keys to heaven and they lost them. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, like we're really going to worry about humanity waking up, yawn. You know, but that, to me, that's where they have blinders. Now, of course, you know, some people will go, oh, what are you smoking, the hopium, Radagast? I know our potential. I know our potential. It's loud and clear in my heart. I have the gnosis of who we are and what we're meant to be. Making that happen, yeah, that's a little bit of a trick, but we're trying to on Mystic View.
We really are, and I think that that's the most important thing that anybody can do, whether it's us with the Mystic View or your yoga teacher or whomever, is to make that heart connection. Because again, we come back to the heart and what's been missing. You were talking earlier about left and right brain hemisphere, about really what we needed to do to keep that balanced and in the center was make that connection with our heart.
Oh, a clarification and expansion. Not only are we trying to do it on Mystic View, GMOP as an organization is trying to do it, and our sister show, The Circle, is also doing the same work we are. So if I made it sound, I know I kind of just went, oh, Mystic View. No, The Circle and GMOP and lots of other organizations are trying to accomplish this. I was just being personal.
And lots of other organizations. Wouldn't it be so mutually beneficial if we could come together and form a hub? Not that we need to have any influence or change anything that anybody else is doing. We need everybody to be their individual self. But wouldn't that be really reflective of the power that we actually have, that most people, you know, they're still going along believing that they have to operate according to the rules that have been put upon them. It's like a horse or an elephant when they're first trained as a baby. You know, they're tied up and taught that they don't have the power within them to break away. And so then when they become older, I mean, with a horse, you can just drop the lead shank on the ground. It's not even tied, but it doesn't even try to fight. Mm-hmm. Same with an elephant. I mean, we are powerful beings, and we are just giving our power away because we're not even testing. We're not even testing the boundaries here. But the Mandela effect. Let's go there.
I think we're doing a good job. Now, one of the things, since I'm always kind of, picking on our community for being a little bit airy-fairy and flaky sometimes. And so part of what I liked, what I'm trying to do, what service that we're trying to provide here, is almost act as an immune system of every time a meme comes into our community, we need to check it out. We got, we got to give it, an all clear sign. It's garbage but harmless, or, ooh, this has some viral DNA that is not good for us. And I just would try to coach people, our whole alternative community, that every new and exciting idea that comes out, we should certainly engage it, but we need to, just engage it with a little more discernment. Give it a sniff. My God, dogs check each other out better than we're checking out some of the information that comes our way.
I like the analogy that you bring back to the immune system or to the human body, because of course, as above, so below. That's how I see it as well. And so we could take even just cell walls, right? They're biological tissue. That's us, aka us, and which are containing countless proteins and fat molecules. Mm-hmm. And these are electrical, the equivalent of electrical dipoles. So, when a cell is at rest, lackadaisical, the dipoles are out of phase and they're scattered. They're arranged in some kind of haphazardous pattern. But as soon as they're stimulated, they begin to oscillate, right? And they broadcast the signal, which reaches, when it reaches the critical level, and that's what we're talking about here, is trying to reach a critical level, they become aligned. And then they start acting together. The result is a coherent state. Mm-hmm. And that's really what I see where we need to get to. We need to be coherent individually and as the collective.
I couldn't agree
On
more.
the same page.
I mean, my God, you have terrorists in Syria that cooperate with each other better than some of us who are trying to bring it into a better world, all kind of operating as our own little cells instead of coming together to form a greater organism, which is kind of, if you follow the biological building up of life on the planet, it starts out as single cells, and then two single cells that kind of have slightly different functions come together and create a synergy.
Right.
And that's what we would really like. I guess, you know, again, we're global mission of peace, but we know there are other organizations out there, might have names just like us. We're on the same page, and we need to find each other and try and create synergies.
Mm-hmm. And know about the synergies. I think we're creating the synergies, but we don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
We need to see it. The whole observer effect. As soon as we see that, that drops down. That's, you know, that's what drops down like the adamantine particle and becomes matter, or creates mass.
Well, I want you to know, I mean, I just found out today through some messaging that in one of our shows, when you were speaking about things in the sky being in our body, how that actually inspired one of our people in the circle to kind of take that and get a show going. I mean, I like these shows to be new, but I just want you, I mean, that concept of yours is very inspiring. And I just hope people who are watching this don't miss the grandeur of these concepts, and also the validity of as above, so below, as outside, inside. I mean, the whole quantum thing is that what we perceive outside originates inside. So it all, you know, so what we're viewing out there is simply the display screen for what is happening in here, including
Right.
stars in the sky.
So are we viewing multiple timelines in the Mandela effect, or has there been a deliberate energy input to disturb our phase modulation, to disturb our coherence? Mm-hmm. That, you know, is that even an important question to answer? I don't know, but we know where to go with this. That's the thing. And it involves communication, and it involves connecting with everybody.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can get into the body again. My understanding of the body and how cells communicate is there are three basic modes of communication. One would be at the quantum, or almost what we might psychologically call telepathy. Something happens in the body, and the information that happens locally goes into the field, and the whole body is kind of aware of it. Then there's the electrical signals, or kind of the digital signal that gets sent out. But as those digital signals are going out, there's also a slightly slower analog process where those signals are turned into chemicals, neuropeptides and other things. And then that goes out. And that's to make sure that, because the other signals could kind of get blocked. But once those chemicals I mean, the chemicals are more, from a biological perspective, more real. Although the other ones have their own reality, but it's almost like it grounds in that chemical expression of information.
The important thing is that we recognize the wave and the particle are simultaneous, so we don't get just stuck in one. To expand our awareness, to be able to be cognizant and aware of the all that is. And once you've learned it, you can't unlearn it. You know, we don't go backwards. There's no regression here. So that's the beauty of meditation also. It's expanding your awareness. Anything you can do to expand your awareness. That's why these ideas, whether it's Wedigo and you've never heard it before, as soon as you start entertaining the idea or thinking about it, you've created new neurological pathways that are expanding, and now they're able to latch on to new information that you weren't able to even consider before.
Mm-hmm.
So yes.
Yes. And I think we might have a show there. I think you know, this is a good time. I feel like we've kind of discussed it as intelligently as we could, and I would urge people to pay attention to this meme, the Mandela effect. look into it, but be discerning. I mean, there are some of these things are just, are kind of like editing, that might not really be so much a part, but that editing is stimulating an opening to these concepts. And so there we have an opportunity. And I just really think we should see this Mandela effect as an opportunity to re-examine our relationship to time, memory, creation, and say, oh, what does it all mean? It all means we need to focus on now, and that also the world that we want lies in our future, not in our past. And any fuzzy memories we have of a glorious past are fine, but the details will be in our future, and in our now, that we will form the details that we're going to need to build this future. So it's okay that the past is a little fuzzy. Don't stress it. Get clear now, and let's build a really clear, beautiful, loving future. What do you think?
Hey, that's beautiful. So what fruit will this produce? I believe we're on to something really wonderful, really grand here.
So we will conclude the show. The good news is we have an opportunity with the Mandela effect. And I was recently taken to task for how I usually close a show by saying, God bless. And
I love it when you say God bless. So
yes,
if you're going to change it, we'll just add or modify it somehow.
That's it. But basically what it was, and this is somebody who's a bit of an analyst and a pill. I love this person very much, but this is almost their function. And so like this is the grain of sand that will produce a pearl from. And the question was, God bless who or what? So God bless all of you out there. God bless our existence. God bless our future. And so I hope that provides some clarity to the person who brought it up to us. Thank you for being here, Shelley, as always. I mean, my co-host, you'll always be here.
Always have been.
Yes.
Never mind. That's another show.
Okay. Thank you all. And goodbye for now.